Hello children, it's Mrs. Burton again. I would like to do some more reading for you, and I'm going to read you the book that we had started reading when we had reading assemblies. We had got halfway through it, but I'm going to start at the beginning if you don't mind. And this is the one, the Dick King-Smith book that we did find quite funny, and is called George Speaks. And as you remember, it's about George, who is no ordinary baby, and his sister Laura. So here we go. Chapter 1. Laura's baby brother George was 4 weeks old when it happened. Laura, who was 7, had very much wanted a brother or sister for a long time. It would be so nice to have someone to play with, she thought. But when George was born, she wasn't so sure. Everybody, her mother, her father, the grandparents, uncles, aunts, friends, made such a fuss of him, and all of them said how beautiful he was. Laura didn't think he was. How could anyone with a round red face and a squashy nose and little eyes sunken into fat be called beautiful? She looked at him as he lay asleep in his carry cot. "Don't wake George up, will you?" her mother had said. "I'll be in the kitchen if you want me." "I won't wake you," Laura said to the sleeping baby. "And I don't want to sound rude, but I must tell you something. You look just like a little pig." And that's when it happened. The baby opened his eyes and stared right at her. "Pig yourself," he said. Laura gasped. A shiver ran up her spine and her toes tingled. "What did you say?" she whispered. "I said, pig yourself," said George. "You're not deaf, are you?" "No," said Laura. "I just didn't expect you to say anything." "Why not?" "Well, babies don't say proper words. They just make noises like goo-goo or blah-blah or wah." "Is that a fact?" said the baby. "Yes," said Laura, "it is. However, can you talk like that when you're only 4 weeks old? It's amazing. I must run and tell Mum." And she turned to dash out of the room. "Laura," said the baby sharply. And Laura turned back. "Yes, George," she said. The baby looked at her very severely. His forehead creased into a little frown. "On no account are you to tell our mother, or anyone else for that matter. This is a secret between you and me. Do you understand?" "Yes, George," said Laura. "I've been waiting for some time now," said George, "to speak to you on your own. This is the first proper chance I've had. With feeding and bathing and nappy changing and people coming to see me all the time. And talk about making noises. That's all some of them do. They bend over me with their silly grins on their faces, and then they come out with a load of rubbish. Who's beautiful then? Who's a gorgeous, Georgeous porgeous? Diddums, wasums, Nanny's eagle treasure. It's an insult to the English language." "But George," said Laura, "how do you know the English language?" "Well, I'm English, aren't I?" "Yes, but how did you learn it?" "Same way as you, I imagine. Listening to grown-ups talking. I wasn't born yesterday, you know." "But you're only 4 weeks old," said Laura. "How did you learn so quickly?" "I'm a quick learner," said George, and he waved his little arms and he kicked his pudgy little legs in the air. "Talking's a piece of cake," he said. "Trouble is, I haven't learned to control my body very well yet. In fact, we're going to have to postpone the rest of this conversation for another time." "Why?" asked Laura. "I'm wet," said George. "Oh," said Laura. "Shall I go and tell Mummy you need changing?" "Use your brains, Laura," said George. "You couldn't have known unless I told you, could you? You keep quiet. I'll tell her." "But you said this was going to be a secret between the two of us. You've been able to talk, I mean." "And so it is," says George. I'll tell her in the way she expects. I've got her quite well trained." And he shut his eyes and he yelled, "Wah, wah, wah!" at the top of his voice. His mother came in. "What the matter with Mummy's lovely little lammy?" she said, and she picked George up and she felt him. "Oh, he's soaking," she said. "No wonder he was crying. Poor Pettykins." He looks like he's more than soaking to me. She smiled at Laura as she changed the baby's nappy. "It's the only way they can let you know there's something wrong, isn't it?" she said. "Yes, Mummy," said Laura, and she caught George's eye as he lay across his mother's lap, and it was no surprise to her that he winked. Chapter 2. For the rest of that day, Laura was in a great state of excitement. She kept grinning to herself and hugging herself and doing little dances when no one was looking. Fancy having a baby brother who could talk. Think of all the things we can talk about, she thought. What a lot there will be for me to tell him. Or will there? She watched George being bathed and kicking away like any other small baby, while his mother supported his head with one hand